first one that we believe and we live by is that we have to coach people, we don't manage them, and our job is to make people better, not make things easier for people. The second one that we live by, that a coach's job is to call the play and take responsibility for the results. Third belief is that beyond the mind and action is that a person is not defined by their thoughts, emotions, or behavior. So next one is that your sales success equals your content and your structure. The last one, and that's structure turns time into an asset. So with the right structure and processes, there's always enough time to achieve any goal. So one of the things you guys know, I think by now about me, we've been kind of working together for a while now and following the stuff that we do, is that I personally always believe that that our beliefs drive everything else. And I think I shared that with you earlier with the beliefs drive behaviors, drive results. But I also believe that there's a concept in life called cognitive dissonance, and you kind of think of your life like this, and that's the circle represents your belief system, and then inside of your circle is all of your skills and your behaviors, etc. All kind of lie within this belief system, and if your belief is not in alignment with the skill that you're being asked to do, then the skills actually like kind of fall out, right? Like they don't actually work, like it rejects it. So in psychology, this would be called cognitive dissonance, right? So it's meaning that like I'm asked to do this skill, but it doesn't fit my value system. It doesn't fit my kind of map of the world. And so because it doesn't fit my map of the world, I don't really agree with it, right? That's what cognitive dissonance is. So in order to help people create lasting change, one of the things that we always have to do as change people, and we're always in the business of change. So if you're in sales, you're in the business of change. If you're a leader, you're in the business of change. If you're a trainer like me, you're in the business of change. We're all in the business of change. So in order to master change work, then we have to always make sure that the skills that we're asking them to do are in alignment with their belief system and their values. And if they're not, then we're kind of wasting our time, right? Like that's kind of the deal. And you guys would know this. Look, let me give you an example. So an example would be, here's an example. Here's a good one. Okay. So an example would be, so let's say you're asking someone to handle a price objection. I'm trying to think of something that's like super similar to everyone. So you're handling, some price objection. And that's the thing that's kind of keeping them from obviously selling more. And so you're giving them the skill, right? So we're going to give them the skill on how to handle a price objection. So the first thing that they're going to do, so this is like the skill side, right? So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to take that down to their belief system, and they're going to say, right? They're going to take this down to the belief system, and they're going to say, do I believe this is going to work, right? So in one, they're going to think like, is this possible? Okay. And they're going to say, am I capable? So whenever you're asking anyone to do anything, the first thing people are going to say, like, is it possible to really do this? If I mastered this skill set, like, is anyone else having success with this? So is it possible for this to actually work? And then once you convince them of, is it possible? Then the second thing we have to convince them of is that they're capable, that like they can actually do it. Like they can actually pull this thing off. And so, but that's the idea. So anytime we're ever trying to get someone to change and do something, that's up here, but the real problem is down here. And if this is not in alignment with here, then we're just kind of spinning our wheels and we'll never make progress. So is that helpful? Hope that's helpful. That's kind of cool stuff there. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to share with you 5 leadership beliefs that we live by here at FPG. So these are 5 beliefs that kind of live, that make everything kind of work for us. And so I'm going to share each belief with you. And then we're going to spend some time on the ones that you have cognitive dissonance on. Okay. So again, what does that mean? It means we're going to talk about the belief. Okay. And then and then after I'm finished, you're going to say, I'm still struggling with that. And then I'm going to coach you through it. I'm going to reframe you and coach you through that belief so that cognitive dissonance is not there anymore, because we're going to give you skills that will fit inside of each of these belief containers. But again, like I said, right? If we give you the skill that's inside the belief container and it doesn't fit, right? That's the skill up here. It doesn't fit the belief container, then you'll have cognitive dissonance. You won't do it. So it'll be kind of a waste of everyone's time. We don't want to do that. So I don't want to waste your time. So that's what this is. All right, so here we go. So the first belief is that that we want to coach, don't manage. And that the belief system here is that a salesperson is an athlete and they should be coached like one, not managed like an employee. I mean, you could probably say that all human beings should be coached like an athlete, but this is when I originally started this. So my belief system is this, and that's a salesperson is a performance. They're a corporate athlete, right? They're a performer. And if we think about a performer or if we think like a regular athlete, it's being a football player or an athlete. It's a mental game, it's a verbal game, it's a physical game, it's a behavioral game, right? There's a lot of elements of it that create a person that allows an athlete to play at the highest performance level. And so if we believe that to be true, that this salesperson in front of me is really a corporate athlete, then I need to coach them like an athlete, not manage them like an employee. What does that mean? Well, to manage an employee is you're just managing the things. It's like you're thinking of like a cubicle worker, and it's like they're not getting their job done. And it's like, okay, well, what can I do to create better systems for you or create better structure for you in order to, get your job done, right? And so how do we kind of move those levers over there? That's really more the managing side. The coaching side is if you're not getting your job done, then I need to figure out what is the mindset that's holding you back? What is the process that's holding you back? What's the language that's holding you back? How are you feeling about things? Like there's a lot more dimensions of what's really going on. So that's the first one. So the first one that we believe and we live by is that we have to coach people. We don't manage them. And our job is to make people better, not make things easier for people. The second one that we live by is that we have to own the play and own the game. That a coach's job is to call the play and take responsibility for the results. Okay, so what does that mean? Is that the philosophy that I teach and I live by, so I'm trying to hopefully convince you of this right now, is that you're really more like a Sherpa than anything else. Okay, so think of a Sherpa trying to climb Mount Everest, right? Is that you've got the climber, and the climber's job is to actually do the climb, but the Sherpa's job is to give the direction on how the climber can most efficiently and effectively get to the top of Mount Everest. Like that's the coach's job, that's the Sherpa's job. And they both have a role to play, but it's really kind of too much to ask the mountain climber to do the climb and at the same time figure out the right play to call. It's like just too much for the athlete. So same thing with a professional football player, right? They've got a coach. A coach is actually speaking into the quarterback's ear. Like they literally have microphones inside of their ear, and the coach can speak the play into the helmet, right? So we've got you got Belichick who's speaking the play into Tom Brady's helmet. So Tom Brady's job is to execute the play with 100% effectiveness, and the coach's job is to call the right play. If the play is called correctly, but the athlete does not run the play correctly, then it's the player's fault. But if the player runs the play correctly and it doesn't, and the athlete executes, then obviously it's the coach's fault. So that's kind of the relationship that I believe in. I believe it's too much for the salesperson to take responsibility for execution as well as strategy. I think it's a lot for them to handle at one time. And so I do believe there needs to be a shared responsibility that the job of a player is to execute, and the job of a coach is to call the plays. Now I know there's a collaborative effort in that too. So I'm not saying that there's not a collaboration, but in general, that's the basic belief. Okay, number 3. Third belief is that beyond the mind and action is that a person is not defined by their thoughts, emotions, or behaviors. Okay, so this one sometimes gets people kind of hung up. The first thing that we have to realize is we have to kind of break the belief system of the identity. And that's what this number 3 belief system is a person is not defined by their thoughts, emotions, or behaviors. So how we're labeling them is like what they're saying out loud or how they're feeling in that moment, or even what they're doing is not who they are. It's like they've got a virus at the time. They've got the coronavirus, or they got the cold, right? And so we've got to cure them of that, and we have to redirect them, and we have to know that they've caught a cold, and we've got to change it, right? And the way we fix that is we first find evidence to support that to be opposite. And so like that's what I just did with you. It's like, oh, well, it sounds like this salesperson is actually a very motivated person, because because he's motivated when it comes to his daughters. He's motivated when it comes to his wife. He doesn't have to be reminded of those kind of things. So he's very motivated in that specific area, right? You either believe they can change and you're going to keep coaching them, or you believe that they're not going to change because they're fixed and we needed to move on and we go hire someone else. Okay, so we can't have it both ways, right? And so step one of that though is we have to separate the behavior from the identity. Like in this case, he's not a lazy person. He's just not motivated to be excellent in sales right now. And we have to figure out, well, why is he motivated to be excellent as a father? And we have to figure out how can we rekindle that same motivation to be excellent in sales. So let's go back to this. Okay, so that's the one that gives the most conflict for people, because I know a lot of people go, man, it sounds kind of woke. It sounds like you're kind of giving these people a scapegoat, and like they're not responsible. And that's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying as a leader and as a coach, we can't be fixed that the person, how they are acting right now is not who they are forever. Okay. And that's just it, right? I mean, think about what a great example of this. Like we've got two teenage girls, they're 15 and 16. Could you imagine if as a dad, I just gave up on them right now? Can you imagine? If I just go, man, these girls are a lot. Like they are a lot to handle. They're moody, they're difficult, they hate their dad, they don't listen to anything I tell them to do. They're oppositional. Like that's it. They're done. Can you imagine? I mean, like that's kind of what we do as leaders, right? It's a moment in time and they're having a bad day, they're having a bad moment, and we need to kind of fix that, right? Now, I will also tell you, here's a kind of cool thing, is that Joe Dispenza is a really cool author if you guys want to read some of his stuff. But he will say that, your personality does create your personal reality, which I think is a great line. But he will also say that how does someone's personality ever get created? Well, first they have a bad day. They have a bad day. And that bad day turns into a bad mood. Maybe you guys have experienced that before, right? Where you have a bad day and it turns into a bad mood and you're kind of down in the dumps, right? Well, if that bad day turns into a bad mood and it doesn't shift, then that bad mood turns into a bad temperament, or to an angry temperament, or to a depressed temperament. And that temperament now lasts, right? Now you have a temperament. They just kind of have a negative temperament, and that lasts for a month or 2 months. Well, if that doesn't change and we don't snap that person out of it, then that depressed temperament will turn into a depressed personality. And that depressed personality will turn into a depressed personal reality. So that's where coaching comes in. Coaching comes in to try to, if we can, get them on the right road versus the left road, right? So if you think of, all of a sudden, right, this person we got two roads. Oh my gosh, why is it not working? We have two roads, right? So we have two roads, and this is the right road, this is the left road, and all of a sudden, they got a bad day. Okay, they got a bad day. That's right here. That's like the origin. Okay, and at this moment, what are we going to do? Because if the bad day turns into a bad mood, okay, and then it's going to turn into a temperament, okay, then it's going to turn in. Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. That's the right road. Then it's going to turn into the personality. Okay, so that's what it is, right? That's what happens. And so we want to fix that immediately, and we want to take them off of the track that they're on, and we want to disrupt the pattern, and we want to reframe them, we want to shift it so that they go down the right road. It's supposed to be on the left road. Anyway, I think you get it. So that's the idea. Okay, next one. So next one is that your sales success equals your content and your structure. So sales growth depends on the quality of the coach's content and the structure that guides the learning. This is something that Mary and I are always having a fun debate with. I am a very big visionary, and so I'm all about the content. I'm all about creating the big idea and creating the content. You could hear me hopefully say that today. And Mary's all about the structure. She's very much more into like A and then B and then C and then D. And so, in the end, which one's more important? They're both equally important, right? You got to have the right language. You got to have the right advice. You got to have the right attitude, which is all content. But then you have to have the right structure as far as how you coach it. So like here would be a good example of that, right? Is, earlier I was coaching you on how to reframe someone, So you liked my content, I would assume, So the content was what's your number one problem that's preventing you from selling more? And I want to spend my time solving that problem with you today. So that's the content. But think about if I didn't ask that question until 45 minutes in. That would be the structure. So the content is when I told Candy, right? Hey, what's your number one problem that's holding you back from selling more today? That's the content. The structure is you need to say that in the first 2 minutes of talking to them. So first 2 minutes, you get right to it and just say, look, your time is very important, and I want to help you sell more. That's the content. The structure is the timing of it, is when you're going to do it. That's the structure. So they're both, again, that's the debate. They're both equally important. And if you're not achieving your success in life, then I need you to understand that it's either a content problem or it's a structure problem. Okay? You're not doing it in the right process. You don't have the right process down. You don't have the right timing down, or you don't have the right content or the right knowledge in order to pull it off. Okay? All right, last one. And that's structure turns time into an asset. So with the right structure and processes, there's always enough time to achieve any goal. Is that structure turns time into an asset? That when you have the right structure and processes and content, there's always enough time to achieve any goal. Because what I can share with you now is what used to take me twice a week, for 2 months, I can create the same result now in an hour session, maybe 2, because I had the right content and I had the right structure. And so I share that with you because that will bust the limiting belief that a lot of us have when we first get started. And that's, I just don't have enough time to coach all of my people. And I know I've said that before, and I'm sure some of you have said that to yourself, at least yourself or outward as well. And it's not that you don't have enough time, it's that you don't have enough structure and content in order to master the time you do have.